Welcome back to Act 3 of Deconstructing Directing, Directing with Kindness. I'm Andrew Robler, the founder and archivist here. So far in this act, we've been exploring the idea of reckless kindness, our shorthand for choosing to treat both ourselves and others as worthy of our positive regard, even when it's risky or inconvenient. That's what this act is all about, applying that lens of kindness to some of the most common, challenging, and emotionally complex moments we face as directors. In this scene, we're going to talk about something deceptively simple that tends to fall apart right when we need it most: collaboration. Most theater artists I know believe in collaboration. We want our teams to feel included, empowered, and respected. But I'd be willing to bet that even when you're committed to trying to build a collaborative environment, you've probably found yourself thinking, why won't anyone just listen? Or why is everything such a fight? Or why am I doing all the work? I know I definitely have. Here's the thing that most of us don't realize. Collaboration isn't the absence of conflict. It's how we handle it. Let's take a look at how and why collaboration sometimes breaks down and what we can do to get it back on track. One of the most common challenges in collaboration is when we think we've communicated clearly, but our team's understanding doesn't match ours. This can look like a designer bringing a set that doesn't match the tone you've discussed, or an actor making changes to blocking that you thought was already set, or a stage manager making a call that undermines your plan. These moments can feel like power struggles, but often they're actually communication failures. It might be that we were too vague, the other person didn't hear us clearly or misunderstood, or we ended up with different memories and perceptions of the conversation. The thing that can be hard to accept is that even though these may be failures of communication, there's not always someone at fault for those failures. I mean, we're humans talking to humans. We're gonna get it wrong sometimes. But even though there may not be anyone who is at fault, as directors, it's our responsibility to correct the failure when we recognize that it is happening. So what do we do? Remember that reckless kindness is about holding both ourselves and others as worthy of positive regard. And that means assuming good intentions. And if we are assuming good intentions, then blaming others isn't helpful, because blame is ultimately about putting the responsibility entirely on someone else. In Act 1, when we talked about facilitation, we talked about the importance of writing things down. So hopefully we have some shared documents or notes we can return to. If not, a miscommunication is a great reason to take some time to make sure we're on the same page and write it down. When we talk to others about the communication issue, we might say something like, "Hey, I think we may have had different takeaways from our last meeting. Can we go over this again to make sure that we're on the same page?" Or, "I realized it wasn't as specific as I meant to be. Let me rephrase." This can feel frustrating if we feel certain that we said it clearly, but reckless kindness means prioritizing the relationship and the process over being right, which prioritizes control and power. At the start of this scene, I mentioned a difficult truth, that collaboration isn't the absence of conflict. In fact, great collaboration requires disagreement. And we as directors know this better than anyone, even if we don't realize it. We look for the conflict in many of the stories we direct. On the stage, conflict isn't a dirty word. It's what happens naturally when every character has an objective and decides on how they are going to pursue it. If everyone on stage agrees with each other about everything, it might get boring pretty quickly. And the same thing is true in real life, when everyone on a team is too scared to disagree with one another or with the team leader. Our legal system is predicated on the idea that there must be two sides who disagree with each other so that the truth can be found, often somewhere in the middle. So that actor who has a new idea about their character's blocking that runs counter to the blocking you proposed, that's a disagreement. Conflict. But disagreement only works if it's grounded in specificity and kindness. When we feel like we're losing control, it's easy to slip into ultimatums. Statements like, "I'm the director, you're the actor, stop trying to do my job," or "theater isn't a democracy." These responses may sound familiar. We might assume that they arise from the traditional point of view of the director as absolute authority and singular vision holder. What can be hard to accept is that ultimately responses like this actually come from a place of fear. Fear that we'll lose authority, or that the work will suffer, or that our vision won't be respected. But these fear-based responses often damage the very collaboration that we're trying to protect. So what's the alternative? Boundaries. Boundaries say, I'm open to the discussion, but I need to make the final call on this one. Or, if this continues to be a point of friction, we may need to revisit how we're working together. And we discussed boundaries in Scene 2. They are statements that focus on your actions and needs. Ultimatums focus on controlling others. Remember, kindness doesn't mean letting people walk all over us. It means balancing our regard for others with our regard for ourselves. And boundaries help us do that. If you haven't yet, check out Scene 2 and the related handouts for some tools to help you establish and maintain effective boundaries. Sometimes, though, the real issue isn't the disagreement itself, it's what's underneath. If you or your collaborators are reacting to a miscommunication or misunderstanding with energy that feels out of proportion, that's a good sign that there is likely a deeper issue at play. When we realize that, there are two parts to an effective response, internal and external. Our internal response is about checking on ourselves. Am I afraid that this reflects poorly on me? Am I trying to make up for past failures? Am I worried that they don't respect me? Am I catastrophizing this choice? This isn't about blaming ourselves, it's about getting curious. As we explored in Scene 2, a lot of our fight or flight response comes from perceived threats to our authority, value, or belonging. Being curious about our own emotional responses helps us reset. That's not weakness, it's leadership. And often we'll realize that what we're really trying to control isn't the process, it's our fear. Our external response is about how we invite the other person into conversation. Curiosity, one of our facilitation skills we explored in Act 1, Scene 2, is the goal here. We need to acknowledge the current issue while remaining curious about what else might be going on. That might sound like, hey there, thank you so much for sharing that concern. I definitely want to address it. I'm also hearing an intensity behind your concern that leads me to think there might be another issue going on as well. I want to work with you to fix the issue you brought up, but if there's another or bigger concern behind it, I want to make sure we address that too. Is there something else you're concerned about? When we can pay attention to frustration that seems outsized for the situation and be curious, we help affirm for our collaborators that our primary goal is to find a way to move forward together, and that we want to hear their concerns, even if they are in disagreement with our choices. Now, there are definitely those who will argue with this and say that nothing will get done if the director is having to manage everyone's feelings all the time like this. And the truth is that addressing people's feelings can take a long time initially, which is why it's important to not fall into the trap of trying to manage the feelings of others, but instead empower them to manage their own emotions. In fact, the more I work with a collaborator, the easier this gets, because once they learn that they can trust me with their disagreements, they feel more comfortable expressing them early before they become major frustrations. There are also plenty of times that you, as a director, will need to make decisions that others disagree with. Collaboration doesn't mean that everyone has to be in consensus about every issue, but it does mean that people feel heard and taken seriously, and that you're not making decisions without hearing their input. There are plenty of disagreements that we can agree to disagree on artistically. I've definitely disagreed with directors that I have designed for or acted for, and goodness knows that as a director, I've made a lot of decisions that team members have disagreed with. It's okay to say that I appreciate your input, and after considering it, here's the direction I'm choosing. It's okay to ask what would help you feel more aligned with this decision, and it's especially okay to acknowledge the dynamic of disagreement. I know this isn't your preferred choice, and I really value that you're willing to try it anyway. That's leadership rooted in reckless kindness and collaboration rather than control. Let's walk through a few scenarios that tend to spark conflict over collaboration and see what collaboration based in reckless kindness might look like. Scenario 1. A choreographer changes blocking to better fit their movement. You notice in rehearsal that your carefully crafted transitions have been altered without your input. A traditional response might sound like, "Hey, this is my blocking, please stop changing it without my permission." A collaborative, kind response might sound like, "Hey, I noticed the movement shifted. Can you tell me what you're thinking? Let's figure out how to integrate that with the transitions that we've already planned." Scenario 2. Your lighting designer is making design changes late in the process without talking to you first. Especially when we're stressed, it's easy to assume malicious intent, but our internal check might help us acknowledge that they're likely trying to solve a problem that they see. The traditional response might be like, "Hey, please keep it to what we discussed and don't make changes." A collaborative, kind response might sound like, "I see that you're experimenting. Can we set a cutoff date for changes so that we're all aligned? I want to be sure that the cast and crew can adjust safely." Scenario 3. Your assistant director keeps contradicting you in front of the cast. Thinking back to scene 2, feeling disrespected is really tough. It's really easy to assume that A, they recognize that it's happening, and B, they're doing it intentionally. A very traditional response might sound like, "Hey, you're undermining me, you need to stop." Our collaborative, kind approach might sound like, "Hey, I'm noticing some friction in the room when we give notes differently. Can we debrief together first before addressing the cast so that we stay united?" Now, in all of these examples, we center curiosity, not control. We invite dialogue while affirming boundaries. That's reckless kindness in action. Control isn't inherently bad. It's a morally neutral tool. But when we rely on it too much, we lose the creative, messy, unpredictable beauty of collaboration. Reckless kindness challenges us to loosen our grip, to replace my way or the highway with let's build the road together. Not because it's easier, but because it's better. And yes, it's risky. Sometimes collaboration means taking longer to get to a decision, trying a choice that isn't our favorite, or hearing something hard. But as we explore throughout this act, kindness is a risk worth taking. You'll find worksheets linked below with diagnostic prompts, boundary language templates, and conversation starters you can use to navigate collaboration challenges. There's also a downloadable tool called the Collaboration Check-In you can use during the process to make sure that everyone is still aligned. As always, all of this content is completely free, and I intend to keep it that way, but free doesn't mean free to make. If deconstructing directing has helped you, challenged you, or made your work easier, I hope you'll consider supporting it through Patreon. Even a small monthly gift helps keep this resource available to the educators, students, and community theater directors who need it most. You'll get some fun perks too, but more than that, you'll be helping to sustain something built for all of us. And if giving isn't possible right now, that is okay. This work is still for you. It always will be. I'll see you in scene 4. Until then, stay curious and recklessly kind.